Good morning, everybody. Kyle Haas here with Mike Maier this morning for our first Fridays at MMI in a hot minute. It's been a little while. Mike, what have you been up to?
Oh, I've been sunbathing in Bora Bora.
Mhm, mhm.
I was down in South America on an expedition through the ancient ruins in the rainforest.
Sure,
Hang out. I rode my bicycle across Africa. It's hard with the 10 speed and all the sand,
sure.
you know. That's
Huh.
pretty much it. I
You're like the second most interesting man in the world.
I think I crossed the most interesting man somewhere in the middle of the Sahara.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was riding a two-wheeled camel.
Ah, indeed,
That's
indeed.
that's why he was more interesting than me.
And you were getting more traction on your 10 speed, huh?
Yeah, it's the thing you do when you're an international mystery man.
I get it. I get it. So, but really though, it is the end of March now of 2025. I think the last time we did one of these was toward the end of last year. So, why don't you kind of walk us through what's been going on, give us a quick update, what's shaking at the shop and where you been?
So yeah, no, it's I think the holidays, at the end of the year, everybody really buckles down. You'll know when we're really busy. It sounds funny by our silence.
Hmm.
The more silent we are, it means the more we got our heads buried in the shop and we're really trying. And if we have a little bit of a breather or if it's just downright time to stop and talk, we'll pop our head up and like try to communicate the best we can. Um, but the end of last year, like the end of every year, you want to wrap the season up as strong as you can and get as many parts out for the holidays as possible. So we did that. That was really great. The end of last season, I don't know if you guys saw, but our son actually won the points championship in Old Blue the first year back at American Autocross Series in Cam T. I mean, and American Autocross has a pretty rad Cam T group. We've got a lot of really great competitors. We got Brian Hobaugh. We've got Chad Riker. We've got Nick Relampagus from Speed Tech. So we got TCI represented there. We've got Speed Tech represented. We got ourselves. We've got a number of different people there in large capacity with respect to support. And so for Old Blue to come out the first season back in 5 years and to be in the hunt. Now, granted, Chad last year and Hobaugh, they were definitely fast. I mean, car to car, they were probably just a tick faster than us. We hit more events. Mick hit the most events, had the highest average finish. So he actually didn't even win a race until the last event.
What a
He won,
slacker.
and he won the whole thing because he had to win the last day of the last event, and he got the points that day. And the funny thing is, he didn't even know he was in the hunt, and we didn't tell him because we didn't want him to get all spun out.
Sure.
And Chad Riker's like, "So, Mick, you're like potential, to win the championship." And this has been like a subject. I don't want to derail our conversation, but just really quick.
Yeah.
Years ago, we had this crappy orange go-kart I traded for a pair of leaf springs with the customer. And it was cool. It was just for the kids. It was come to the autocross, run this little go-kart. And we got, with the help of a friend, we got the thing running pretty good, but it was pretty small. And we finally, with the help of our friend, we got a proper, better go-kart for him to run autocross. So he finally started getting speed that he was looking for. Mick and Lily started doing really good. They started winning events. They were in position to win the championship as kids at autocrossing. And like the last event he needed to wrap the points up, the weekend of, the trailer gets stolen, all the go-karts get stolen, all the kids' stuff gets stolen, and they didn't win the points.
Hmm.
And it was like super for kids. It was a letdown. It was
Yeah.
a super bummer. So here Mick is 19 years old, It's never really got a consistent shot at a full season of something. This is the first time he had a full season, first time Old Blue's been back. And that poor car just put in work, dude. 40 laps a weekend and rev limiter left and right. And dude wraps it up. Last day of the last event of the season. Well, I mean, pretty rad.
Sounds like both the car and the kid wanted a chance to come back to glory again.
You know, that was pretty rad. I mean, I was him and Han. I really wanted to put the car back like every proper guy with the big motor and all the everything. And the family pushed me on the small motor. And we just had our first event this season a couple of weeks ago. And we're planning on, we got like a couple things planned for this next season, but the plan is still to run Old Blue with the family. The kids are going to run Old Blue mainly. And then Brianna and I are hopefully going to run Frank's car. But the first event back, we won it throughout the weekend. And Brian Hobaugh was running, excuse me, and he did break an axle the second day, but Old Blue was freaking awesome. I mean, and I got this like kind of flood of, I don't know how to say it. It was like awesome. I was so stoked because the first season was just like, why is the power steering belt squeaking so freaking bad? It turned out it was a brand new old belt. It was a really old belt that was brand new. So it was like super hard. And then we just put another belt on and everything was good.
Mm-hmm.
What spring rates do we run on the car? Because back when we ran the car last, we had a completely different way of doing springs. Nowadays we're doing springs completely different. But now we're keen to it. We know we can identify some of these things that before we were just getting the car balanced. Now we're asking more. We want more compliance here. We're just refining our spring taste. And so we started adapting some of our new understandings to Old Blue, and it took it to the next level. It was just like really rad. Just a lot of little things. And now all of a sudden it's like, wow, we can get the car to go through a slalom so much better. Wow, we can get the car to roll the center of a turn so much better. And so it kind of is a testament. I started really thinking about it. We're running Falcon tires. Falcon tires are like the workhorse of the tire right now. They're not the softest tire. They're not the newest cheater of the cheater tires, because a lot of the 200 treadwear tires come out with like cheat tires that aren't really 200.
Mm-hmm.
We're running a legit solid Falcon RT660. It's not even the Plus, not even the new one yet. And we're putting 40 laps a weekend on the car. It's a lot of laps. We have 250 horse. We have a great little carburetor, a 4-speed, a top loader. We got the top loader from a customer. This because the first top loader we broke the gear, but that top loader hadn't been gone through ever, and that was in the yellow car too. So I mean, like, it's so simple, but what we've been able to do is just start chipping away at the really boring little things like the power steering pump, the spring rates. What sway bar do we want to run? Do we run the sway bar this snug on the bushings or this snug on the bushings? Because tightening the bushings and loosening the bushings are super effective on how the car rolls. Mm-hmm. The seating position. I changed the steering wheel location just so it fits all of us better. Just all these dumb things, like making sure the car runs all the time, like the radiator cap. It was an old, crusty old radiator cap. Put a new radiator cap on it.
Sure.
I don't know how to explain it, but all of a sudden, like a real dude's motor, a real guy's transmission, not the new DTC Porsche transmission conversion that's going to cost the poor customer $10,000 to put in there, and the ECU systems and the tuning, and it's just about refining what you got.
Yeah, yeah, I get that, but I am going to challenge you a little bit on that because you do have quite a suspension system hidden under that car, and it is noticeably wider than a normal car.
Well, okay, wider. The old school dudes figured that out in the 70s, dude. That's not a new thing.
Hmm.
You know, a 65 Mustang is narrower and taller than most cars today by a distance.
Hmm.
Okay, it might be lighter, but it's narrower. And that's going to load the tire. So widening the car and lowering the car isn't a new subject. And I got to give credit to competition. If early days, like, so now if you run Optima, there's classes,
Hmm.
right? When Old Blue was running Optima, there were no classes. So if you look at the results, we were in the top 10 with Old Blue on a regular basis against everybody. Porsches, Corvettes, whatever showed up that weekend, that car was in the top 10.
Hmm.
And it was at the top 10 in the finale, which was the top 100 of the season. So if you don't compete, you don't lose. And if you don't lose, then you don't get the itch to improve. I mean, so if you just go out and make laps and just cruise around, now maybe if you're just cruising to the coast, like we took Old Blue this year, and you're just making these wonderful drives up these these vistas and these canyons, which is the goal, you want to know that that platform underneath you is what you spent the money on. You didn't spend the money on a gimmick. You spent the money on something that's got, I don't know, it's a thoroughbred. It's got heritage. I don't want a fake thing. I want the real thing. I may not use it like you. You know what I'm saying? So like so developing the car in a race environment forces the person to see that they're not as good as the next guy. And it forces innovation, forces forward movement, and you're forced to see where
It
you're
forces
not.
an ego check, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you've got to stop and say, gee, this isn't, having the effect that I thought it would, because I think a lot of guys start with the misconception that a bigger motor is how you win autocross, right? That's how you win racing, is you just put a big old power plant up front and you gas it. And for those of you who haven't been to Crow's Landing is not a small autocross. I mean, you've got some places to stretch your legs out there. So it sounds like, contrary to popular belief, bigger motor doesn't always equal a faster time. You found it to be just the opposite.
The first event we won last year was the fastest event of the year with the biggest straightaway. And it's an event we call Larry Park. It's always the fastest event. It's absolutely designed around having power. And Mick and I went in there, and our goal and Brienne's goal, and Lily's, the family goal was, we may not win this event because, I mean, we're running against 400 cubic inch LS motors, all aluminum, 750 horse, blah, 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 blah. We may not be able to win this event, but we're absolutely going to win the first 2 laps. We're going to give them a black eye, right out of the gate. We're going to come out swinging, and we're going to hold on as long as we can. And that Crow's Landing event, that Larry Park Memorial, we came out swinging, and it was awesome, dude. I mean, we were even surprised, and it was all about not lifting at the end of the straightaway where everybody else was lifting. There was a big long drifter in the back. Well, I don't have any power, so just maybe downshift and just leave it wooded. Don't touch the brake and let the turn scrub it. Learn some of these things that you learn from the bigger courses, carry the speed, let it slide.
So is there something to be said then for having a smaller, lower horsepower option that you can just keep floored the entire time versus something you kind of need to finesse around the autocross?
100%. We learned that years ago. The guy I've been driving for, and that's going to lead us into the next subject, is Frank Stagnaro.
Mhm.
And He's in C prepared, which is a class in autocrossing, which is ultimately GT1, which is ultimately Trans Am.
Mhm.
So back in the day, you used to be able to do, if you could build a car by the rules properly in the early 80s, you could build a C prepared autocross car that could run a GT1 race, that could run a Trans Am when they come to town. So the rules used to be flat and linear across all the classes. And back then, and it still is this way, you take a weight penalty for the cubic inches that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So the debate was always big cubic inches, big weight, or small cubic inches, lightweight. Which one do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And so choose your poison. And Frank spent a bunch of time developing head flow characteristics coupled with the right camshaft, all sorts of different cam combinations, what kind of intake manifold, and what kind of carburetor to get the surge of power and the power delivery right. So do you choose a 106 cam lobe center, or do you choose a 112 cam lobe center? So like a 112 cam lobe center will give you a little softer bottom end and a little more mid to top, which might be good for a 400 cubic inch or a 350 cubic inch motor, something with more grunt that you need to calm the bottom end down. Whereas maybe a 106 is going to be more explosive, which you might put into a 310 motor that's going to make up for the lack of cubic inches. Mm-hmm. So you don't have a lot of torque with the 310, so you'll build a little bit more explosive cam to kind of falsify the torque a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so he is and was tremendously attentive to the power delivery and how it delivered. And he was very sensitive on his engine builders, on whom he chose as his engine builder. So he focused on, like, say, sprint car builders, midget guys, because they always ran in one RPM, one gear. So from the bottom of the RPM to the top, mm-hmm. how that power delivery was. And so we basically figured out about 450 horsepower is peak. It's about the number you want for a proper, good autocross car. You're going to have ranges beyond north and south of that. But if you get to 600 horsepower, it starts getting hard to drive. You're having to work the throttle. And head flow, cam manipulation, you can't fuel inject that. I mean, you can't manipulate that just with timing. You can't manipulate velocity of airflow with just a keyboard. That's in the design of the engine builder, understanding port flow, valve angles, all these things that need to be there as a foundation. And then you add your timing and fuel delivery to complement that. But timing and fuel delivery can't mask velocity easily. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm keeping up.
So smaller motors, the idea is you come off a turn, you flat foot it, you don't think. You literally just put your foot to the mat, and the power, as it builds velocity inside the motor, it starts to drive the tires equally. It doesn't come on and surge and hit. Mm-hmm. It's not flat and dead. You want that just nice, even linear growth.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this then. Does the follow-up thought to that mean potentially a smaller tire is appropriate? Got a smaller power plant. Is a smaller...
No. I would say tire is generally determined on the size of the car. So if you have a Miata, it's really hard to work that a 305 or 315 into the ground and generate the energy you need. So the mass of the car has to load the tire and scrub the tire and work the tire in enough to get the tire to fire. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for example, if you've got a midget, like a USAC midget, which is like a circle track car, it's like a small sprint car. They go just as fast as a sprint car. It's got a 10-inch right rear wheel, whereas a sprint car may have like a 17-inch right rear wheel. Mm-hmm. You know, and the difference is 500 pounds, but you don't put a midget tire on a sprint car because there's too much mass for that smaller tire. So there's a ratio that you want a certain amount of mass for a certain amount of tire to get that tire to work. So with a Mustang, with how narrow and tall they are, it puts a lot of load on the tire. So you want to try to get the load off of the tire, already overworking the tire in a Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
So getting the tire out wide, getting the car down low so that you don't overload the tire is like tremendously important. Just by lowering Old Blue and widening it, it was something like 2 seconds a lap. I mean, and that was not changing necessarily, quote unquote, the springs and shocks and bars, but by lowering it, widening it, we took the load off the tire and substituted the load with speed. So if your threshold, the tire can only do so much, right? At this load capacity, it's reached its max. So you take the weight off and you replace it with centrifugal force and speed. Does that make sense, kind of?
Yep. It can only do so much. You're asking it to do a bunch of different things all at once. Get rid of one, supplement with another.
And as you do that, you can start taking the suspension and softening it up a little bit. You can start softening the spring rate up. You can start softening the shocks up because you're not over constraining an inefficient shape. So if you have a really narrow, tall thing, you have to over constrain it to keep it composed. So it's going to be stiffer and less docile. So this means the guy driving on the street is going to have a crappy, stiff ride because you're trying to get the car composed. But the lower, the wider you get the thing, the less you have to over constrain, and the more supple the car becomes.
Well, and that hits on not only my next question, but a really good point. I was going to say, this all sounds well and good for the guy on the track, but what does that translate to for the guy who's just out driving his car around and trying to enjoy it, trying to trust it on the highway, trying to, make it something that's enjoyable or feels like a modern car? My, outsider perspective would say the last thing you'd want to do is take a street car and lower it and widen it. But you're saying just the opposite of that.
Well, everybody's got their dream, right? Everybody's got their style. Like, hey, I really envision a 15-inch tire on this car. And man, that's just my dream. Okay, cool. Let's build your dream, but let's manage expectations. This is what we're going to feel. This is how it's going to be, right? And we'll do our best to work with it. And if we didn't do all the shock valving, if we didn't do all the spring combos, we wouldn't understand the tools on how to use them as well as we do, so that we can get you to a wonderful dream. You know what I'm saying? Like make the best of what you have available. It's like, what's the best of our little 302? Let's make the best of it. This is our set of facts that we're dealing with right now. So a street guy we find a lot of people are in love with an idea, but they're not in love with the way the car drives if it's not done right. And the worst case scenario is for someone to build a car for 5 years and get it on the road, and it kind of sucks. But at first you're going to be in this honeymoon state where you love anything because it's been so long, right? Then after a while, you're going to start to grow critical. And then once you grow a little bit critical, then you kind of start becoming disenchanted because you're not understanding why it's acting like this. It's like having like a pistol and trying to shoot 200 yards with a pistol. It's like at first you're a kid, you're 16 years old, and you're like, oh yeah, plink, 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 you're having a good time. But now you're trying to shoot 200 yards and you're getting upset because you're missing the target.
Even though all the parts are brand new and you just did it yourself.
Yeah. So once you start talking to a customer and you start saying, hey, okay, I hear that you want to do this. So you're running a 15-inch tire. The sidewall is going to bounce a lot because they haven't developed a 15-inch tire in 35 years. The technology's hell of old. So how do we work with that? How do we get you to enjoy that the best we can? Well, we're going to use a linear piston in the back, in the shock. We're going to add a little more bleed to the shock because we need that shock to give before the sidewall does. Because if the suspension's too stiff, the sidewall starts like bouncing like a balloon, and it starts giving this really crappy pogo-y feel. So we need to manage expectations and understand how to get that customer the best dream result they can.
I mean, what it sounds like you're saying is there's a lot of variables when it comes to building one of these cars. And if your dream is to lock in on a couple of those variables, whether that's a 15-inch wheel or a such and such tire size or limitations on width and height, gee, I don't want to add flares, gee, I don't want to, I want to keep the original footprint, then you start to modify some of the other variables to make that car still enjoyable for that person.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody's dream is different, but I don't think anybody comes in here saying, I, I I really want a crappy ride. you know, Nobody wants a crappy ride, whether you're a race car driver or whether you're cruising to the coast. You don't want to go into a turn at 90 miles an hour sideways with the car bouncing all over the place doing weird stuff. Not fun, man. There's a wall or a ravine over there. Or I'm driving to the coast for an hour and I think that it's okay if my wife hates this ride. Not really.
Well,
Not,
I think there's a belief that the ride is bad because the car is old, right? And so if I put new in old car, suddenly ride is better. But that's not always the case, right? Just because you put in a bunch of new parts doesn't make the ride any better. Standards have changed a lot in the 50s and 60s years that it's been since they designed and built these cars. Um, there's just a lot more to it than I'm going to throw new parts at it until I'm happy with it. Because even if everything's all new, that doesn't mean it's all working together.
yeah, no, it's a big thing. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, you got to look at each customer and you got to give them the right bits, the best you can for their job. And I find that if I talk too much, it intimidates them and makes them think I'm gonna build them a race car when it's no, this is just what I do. I geek out, and these little small nuances are tremendously important to them just getting in and just enjoying it and not having to know too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as simple as just making a choice sometimes. Do I buy this one or that one? Well, if you just knew that that one was going to feel better, man, that would have saved you a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
It always amuses me because I see some of the email inquiries that you guys get, and oh, I want this, but I'm not a race car driver, but I just I want to get that, or I'm not really a race car driver, I'm not really an autocrosser, but I like what you guys are doing, I like what you're, set up after. There's this sort of prevailing assumption that I think, Mike Maier equals racing, and that's so far from the truth. It's an important reminder for people that racing isn't always about going faster. In some ways it is, but going faster doesn't always mean more horsepower, stiffer suspension, all that good stuff. And I think Old Blue has really been sort of the defining moment for that for you guys. Sometimes going faster is replacing the belt that squeaks and annoys the crap out of you. Sometimes going faster is being comfortable in your seating position and being able to enjoy the drive better. That's applicable whether you're on a racetrack or on a highway.
Yeah. If you're driving down Crow's Landing's runway and there's expansion gaps, the way the concrete's poured and it's going, it's irritating as hell. And you can't focus on the turn because cars bouncing all over the place. Well, that's irritating and it sucks. And you're probably not going to get a good time. If you're doing the same thing going down the highway, or some crappy street, it's irritating and it sucks. You're not going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same exact thing. The only thing is Mike loves, I love the competition and learning and growing. That's just my thing. And I never really want to push that on the customer. If the customer's thing is cruising up the mountain road and just having that feel, then rat, let's do that thing.
Mhm.
But let's use all of our information to make sure his information, my wife's information, everybody we can, all the experiences we've gotten from our other customers to make sure that, because let's face it, we're not driving our cars generally every day. So maybe we drive that car next weekend. We plan a trip and we kind of plan a lot around that trip. So we're driving it that one time. It better not suck. So let's do our best if we have a choice together to think about it a little bit, geek out on it, have fun, and then get the parts to you that's going to make sure that that's the coolest thing we could have done, and
Yeah.
just go on and have fun.
Yeah, in a way, racing becomes a feedback tool. It's sort of a megaphone that screams at you, hey, this might be up or something's going on here. That might be a little more difficult to suss out when you're driving around the street or around town. But when you're on a track and you need it there, it's a little easier to feel it. It's a little easier to find it. It's a little easier to fix it. And then on the street, it just never becomes noticeable.
Well, I think also you may pass it off as, oh, this is just me.
Hmm.
But if you see yourself drop from second to fourth place, you're like, oh, it's in your face. You can't hide it,
Hmm.
and so if you're falling behind, if there's speed tech out there, if there's TCI out there, and they're beating you or they're doing something better than you, well, would you want to buy from a company that says, oh, that's okay, second best is good enough for us? No,
Yep.
no, I didn't. It's not. My grandfather's car is good enough for third best. No, no, I just want to know that I did my best to do the best within my means with what I have. And I took the time just to make a good decision, kind
Mhm.
of a thing, whatever that means to you. So that's that. So yeah, I think that's yeah.
Well, and that's such a great philosophy, and honestly, it gives you guys such a competitive advantage. I mean, just before we started recording the call, we were talking about strut rod clevises and how you've sort of released a new revision to that approach, right? As a customer, I have to sit back and wonder when was the last time a lot of these other companies revised their strut rod clevises, and what if it's ever been done, what led them to do that? With you being hands on the ground, with you being the guy who's making these parts, you not only have the ability to affect that change almost immediately, but you can take what you've learned and bring it right back and put it into production pretty quick thereafter.
Yeah, that's a that's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing. It's a you got to be careful of that, because I think the first legitimately 8 to 10 years of our existence was trying really hard to make sure we were making a really good part. Like the part individual, today we're making a part. And we want to know that when we make this part, we learned this thing, like you said, last weekend. And oh my God, this is better. Why is it better? I don't know. Well, I've asked 14 different engineers and nobody knows what I'm talking about. And it turns out a lot of these guys are just regurgitating whatever it is they read. They never experienced it, they never felt it. So now you go through this process and you're trying to change parts and modify parts. All the while, it's slowing production. So on the front side, it's irritating. On the back side, once you come through the mist, you have something better.
Hmm.
And so I'd say most of the first decade has been, how do we make a really good part? And then how do we get into a position where we're like, hey, we know a lot about this now. We're not just fluffing, blowing smoke. We can modify on live updates. But now how do we make these things efficiently?
Mhm.
It's like, how do you have a really great part is different than how do you have a great ability to get this to people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like people see it and they say, I want that really neat thing. And you're like, yeah, I want to get you the really neat thing. But we all don't realize I spent the last 2 weeks making the part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's sort of that split between the left brain and the right brain, right? Like the right brain creative sides, that's the creative side, right? Is the right side?
Not sure.
I think it's the right side is the creative side that says it can always be better. It can always be improved. It can always be updated and changed, right? Versus that left side that's like, all right, well, now I got to build it. Now I've got to engineer it. I've got to make it repeatable and I've got to be able to get it out the door to people. That's got to be a tough line as a business owner and as a racer and as someone who's passionate about this to find the right line between those two competing desires, right? To always make it better and to make it efficiently and get it out the door.
I think it's all kind of one and the same. I want all the motor. I want the biggest, baddest motor, right? Or I want the newest, or I want the this. When really, just like Old Blue, it's the average. It's the whole thing. Maybe you don't have the best motor. Maybe you don't have the best training. Maybe you don't have the best this or the that, or the stickiest or the whatever. But it's how well everything works together to create the best average package. And maybe we come back home from a weekend and we learn something huge and we're like, oh my God, I really want to put that into production. But if the customer doesn't have their stuff in the first place, it doesn't matter whether they have the new one or the old one because nobody has it. Mm-hmm. So you really gotta old man up a little bit and say, dude, we've got all this latitude and we can make, I don't know how to say it. It's like we're trying to gain perspective so we can get people all of their product, also something that they can grow into, something with great tribal knowledge, but not go off the rails and into some rabbit hole of we need this new singular little thing that's going to take us 4 weeks of nothing else happening, and then we're going to get this incremental change. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yep.
It's like, I can put fuel injection on Old Blue. I can spend thousands of dollars tuning and doing all these things, or I can just bolt on a BLP carburetor. Mm-hmm. Boom, done. I can maybe go and research the stickiest of the stickiest tires for this one event, but this tire is going to get me a great life over the entire season, over the most surfaces and the most this and the most that. And guess what? You won a championship.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, everybody, it sounds funny. It's like all the guys in the KMS class are poo-pooing Falcons. Guess what? Falcons won. And we outpacked a lot of those guys. So it's like.
Well, it just goes to show you how much of that is just hearsay, right? First of all, there's the assumption that whoever spends the most money is going to win. That is almost never the case. And then, yeah, it's my friend says this is no good. And I've heard that from another guy. So obviously it's no good, right? Well, that's not a replacement for testing. That's not a replacement for approaching the standings with your eyes open, right? Just because people were poo-pooing Falcon, it won. So it can't be that bad. And where are these guys getting their info from? Is it just a great big, telephone circle? Or
it's a lot of us. I think that's another thing too, is it's amazing to me, and then we probably ought to move on, but it's amazing to me how easily it is for all of us to fall into the rut of following. Mm-hmm. And I've never been a follower. Probably one of my bad ones is like, yeah, I don't want to look at somebody else's stuff and say, look at mine and say, oh, look, I copied his, and I could just because I could. Mm-hmm. No, we can do better than that. So cool. I think I go on, like you said, back to the short rod clevis. We make most everything in here, and it's tedious. It takes forever. There's not enough employees. There's not enough machinery. There's not enough of this. There's not enough of that. But we are getting parts out every day. We are making updates all the time. I mean, and And there's a lot of development in it and a lot of time, and it takes forever. But hopefully, like Old Blue as a testament, that's old stuff. I did the stuff to that car 8 years ago, 9 years ago in a competitive fashion. And we picked it back up, cut the horsepower by 75%. And it's still working pretty good. And so that's like ultimately rad, because that tells me that a customer who bought something 8 years ago can update their car and not reinvent and rebuy everything. And it works.
Mm-hmm.
It can still go. It can still be right there at the top. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I want to talk about something else.
All right, let's transition then. What's on your mind?
Really, really fast. I'm super stoked about Frank Stagnaro's car this year.
Okay.
Frank Stagnaro, we ended up, my dad started sponsoring him in 73, and the car is still running. It took the last year off because they pushed a valve inside the cylinder head crooked. So the motor got pulled out, and we took the opportunity to cut the front of the car off. And a lot of people don't realize there's a tear effect. We historically have tried all the wackiest, craziest stuff on either Frank's car or my yellow car back in the day first.
And Frank's car, for those who don't know, is the white Fastback 65.
It's a white 65 Fastback.
Blue stripes.
It's got 14-inch wide front slicks, 14-inch wide front slicks, and 14-inch wide rear slicks. It's all race. It's all pissed off. It's awesome. And so if we want to do something completely out of pocket, something super duper wacky, we get our rocks off on that. What's the difference? What's the feeling difference between a mild steel cage and a chromoly cage? Well, let's cut the cage out and put one of those in and try that. What's the difference of X amount of tubes versus X amount of tubes for chassis stiffness? What's that do to spring rate? Let's try it. Bird cage rear brakes. Let's try it. You know, stupid stuff we've done over the years. And so the latest version is we cut the front of the car off and we put a new front end on. The car had been hacked and whittled so many different times. So in the evenings after work, a couple days a week, and on the weekends, I've been making a new front suspension. It's not going to be for sale for customers, but this is where the Mod 2 front suspension came from, was from Frank's car. And it's a full trickle down effect. And so it goes from Frank's car to Old Blue to customers. So we kind of do this tier thing. And so the motor's done at the dyno. That's really cool. It's been a year and a half. And we're plumbing radiator lines in the evening right now. We're doing some of these things, but we're going to put more focus, I think, on family this year. Sounds funny. So our season plans are keep Old Blue running throughout the season in American Autocross Series. Make sure that thing's there for the kids and us to just keep working on and having a family environment. And then have Frank's car there too, to go towards nationals at the end of the year and see how well we can do there again. Because nationals, SCCA nationals, and American Autocross has really been great for our family. We get to pit there. We have the dogs tied up to the trailer. They walk the course with us. We barbecue during the day. It's just a really good, warm family environment. And I think that we learn, although not super marketable because there's not big crowds there, we learn some of the most we possibly can at those events. So it's really concentrated, really potent, and it's just going to be fun. I'm really excited about that. So this season's going to be keep Old Blue going, get Frank's car going, learn a whole lot on that because we got a lot of neat, cool things coming out on that. Some really cool mind-expanding randomry that came out of Mike's noodle. We made our own spindles. The spindles have a lot of rad stuff to them. We have a whole new steering system. That's super duper crazy wacko. We have geometry that we've done. I mean, just a lot of cool stuff. And then work this year is going to be do our very best to try to double our output. Sounds funny. It's a lofty goal, but we really want to double our output. We really want our customers to have the product sooner, faster, better. That's a huge goal for us. But we're going to probably lay back on some of the other events, focus on that. And talking about events, tell me about your event.
Oh, okay. So I'm the guy in charge of the Rocky Mountain Mustang Roundup. This is the 37th year for the show this year.
So it's
Um,
new, just starting.
Yeah, just getting started. It was started by a bunch of old timers who just wanted to kind of get away, and a couple of the clubs here in Colorado for early Mustangs and whatnot. Used to be up in Steamboat, and it got so big that we ended up having to find a new home for it. So we landed in Cripple Creek, Colorado, which is about an hour or so west of Pikes Peak International Raceway.
Is that the Cripple Creek that they sing about in Grateful Dead?
I have no idea. Maybe?
Okay, you got to look that up.
Maybe we found a new theme song. Is that what I'm
Yeah,
hearing?
there's the whole song. In Cripple Creek, she sends me. Okay,
I doubt it. This is a very, very small, like old,
that's like a Grateful Dead kind of sound and hippie thing. Our bus broke down in Cripple Creek.
maybe, maybe. As long as they were looking for a mining opportunity, then yeah, they were on the right track.
I broke down in Rice Hill, Oregon one time.
No idea where that is. I don't
Neither
think
did I, but I figured it out.
there you go. GPS is helpful. So anywho, it's good. We're gonna have an autocross event. We're gonna have a show and shine. We're doing a little mountain tour, kind of a rally from PPIR over to Cripple Creek. Um, should be a
How
good
can,
show.
how can people find out about this show?
So if you head to Rocky Mountain Mustang Roundup.org, you'll be able to find more information and sign up there. We're shooting for, at this point, about 300 cars. There's room to get even bigger, though. So if you're in the Rocky Mountain region or you're in the Front Range area, we've had people from New Mexico, we've had people from Wyoming, we've had people from all over the place who make the trek out to spend the weekend with us.
You can
So
even do Kansas. That's a long drive across Colorado, but you could do it.
you could, you bet, you bet. And so it's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work getting everything ready to go. We're making some changes this year to try and
A lot of Utah guys too.
yeah, yeah. We've made changes to try and, listen to some of the feedback we've gotten from people and make it a more accessible event and a more affordable event for folks. So it's
What weekend is that?
what's that?
What weekend is it?
It's Father's Day weekend. So June 13th and 14th of this year.
So if your family loves you, they'll let you go to this event.
Bring them with you.
Right.
Yeah, bring them with you. We're hoping to do even a Hot Wheels event for kids. So, like I said, we're trying to make it kind of a family-friendly, fun event for everybody. So, yeah,
Awesome.
come on out. We'd love to see you.
That'd be super rad. Well, you can guarantee if I've got a chance, I'll be rolling out.
Okay, well, that's, I feel mixed about that because if you come out, you're going to want to drive my car. And if you're going to want to drive my car, I'm a little afraid to put you behind the wheel of mine.
Well, I'm thinking about taking old Blue and changing the jets in that thing for some altitude.
Okay. Yeah,
Oh,
please
man.
do. Please do, because my car's got a Coyote and you don't have the best track record with those. So,
No, I don't. No, I'm allergic to certain things.
I'm gonna take an insurance policy out before you come out.
Well, I really appreciate you pushing this. It was funny you were joking that if you don't come on and have a coffee with me, that I'm gonna go in the mirror and do this whole copy with MMI by myself. So I appreciate you pushing. I also sounds really funny. I really want to say I appreciate also the support from last year with Old Blue too. Falcon tires, Willwood brakes, BLP carburetors. Just kind of rad, like old family support. And it's just been really great. Just getting tech and support, having you push, having you just, it's hard to come out and have it. So every once in a while, you need people like yourself and other people to come up and rattle your cage and be like, dude, what are you doing? So I
It's been a
appreciate it.
hot minute since we've been on YouTube. People want to know what you're up to. You're back in
Yeah.
the mad scientist lab, cutting the front ends off of cars and building new steering systems.
When it comes out, I think people will understand.
Well, I'll be excited to see it.
It's kind of rad.
Right on. Well, I think that's a good stopping point for today's Friday mornings at MMI. Mike, is there anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, man. Everybody out there is trying real hard. Everybody's excited to drive their cars. We're all in it to just have a good time, and we're all trying our best. And we just look forward to seeing everybody this summer. And it means a lot, all the support out there. And so we're just going to keep doing our best for everybody.
Well, cheers. We'll try to do another one of these in less than 3 months.
Yeah. Thanks,
Guys,
Kyle. I appreciate it, buddy.
we appreciate you all watching. Mike, good to have you this morning. We'll catch you next time.
All right, bye.
All right, bye-bye.